Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Jim Braz joining us here, the co-author and co-founder of Baby Out of Wedlock, and his wife Jessica also is a co-author and founder. Excited to have him back today to talk more about the consulting company and, of course, the book and so much more. How are you today?
Hi, Jill. How you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being here, Jim. Please tell us a little bit about the work you and your wife are doing and have done.
Sure.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Well, first, let me just tell you, I'm fighting a cold here, so if I reach for my tissues or clear my throat, sorry about that.
No problem.
So my wife, Jessica, and I each went through a similar situation about 15 years ago where we had children with people we did not want to marry. And that led to all kinds of problems and issues and expensive legal battles. And we made a lot of mistakes and we learned a lot. And we wrote a book in 2021 to try to package all that information up into something that can really help people who are going through this situation. And so the book offers something for the mothers, something for the fathers. It's not a one-sided argument, and it's really filled with practical advice. Called Baby Out of Wedlock. You can get it anywhere books are sold. There's an Audible as well. We have a website that goes along with the book where we offer people some, one-on-one Q&A if they need it. But really, everything that's of value is in the book. So that's where I would direct people to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're excited to have you here again to talk more. I know we got a lot of your background about, and just to point out again, 40% you said of children in the USA are born to unmarried parents, right? And there's some hardships and dangers in doing all this alone. But, and we've talked more about adoption and single parenthood and so much. What did you have in mind for your show today?
Yep. Well, today I wanted to cover the big issues surrounding financial questions, child support. I mean, when somebody finds out they're going to be a single parent, that's one of the first things that come up is, what's child support going to cost? How do I get it? How do I pay it? Is it going to break the bank, et cetera? And so, we spent the first three interviews talking about other issues. This one's really going to focus on the financial questions. And, I just want to start out by saying, somebody said to me when this happened to me, don't worry so much about the money because all these babies really need is to be loved, right? So let's keep that in mind. It's not going to be something that changes your life upside down, financially. Babies themselves are actually kind of cheap, right? I mean, diapers but it's the child support is also, manageable because it's going to be based on your income.
Yeah.
It's the legal bills that can absolutely crush you if you get into some battle, right? Tens of thousands. I ended up spending $160,000 over over 4 or 5 years of legal battles with my daughter's mother.
Oh my gosh.
And that's unusual. And we were still, we were the example of what not to do. And my now wife Jessica, she spent about $30,000 in her battle, which only lasted about 1 year. But so even though she did things, better, I'll say, than I did, it is still expensive. And I think if both parties read our book and can realize that you do need a lawyer, but really all they have to do is fill out a couple forms. If you could both come to the lawyer and say, here's what we've agreed on, well, we're not trying to kill each other in court. It doesn't have to be expensive at all. We're talking, hundreds, not thousands of dollars. So with that in mind, I'll jump in here to, how to think about child support, financial support, and what that is going to cost you if you're the paying parent or what you can expect to receive if you're the receiving parent. So the first thing to understand is that it's different than divorce, right? When you get divorced, there's an alimony calculation and there's a child support calculation. And you have to cut all your assets down the middle, usually 50-50 or something like that. So this is not nearly as bad, if you will. There's no alimony in a baby out of wedlock situation. So alimony is designed to really equalize the standard of living after the couple splits up. But since you were never together as a baby out of wedlock situation, you don't have to do that. So it's okay if one parent is, better off financially than the other. However, the courts don't want, child living in a mansion on the weekends and on the streets in a, ghetto on the weekdays. So the child support payment is designed to somewhat partially equalize the standard of living between the two parents. It's not like alimony where it's going to be exactly equal, but it's not just like, well, babies only need diapers and formula and clothes. That doesn't cost $3,000 a month, right? But so it's somewhere in the middle. So each state has their own calculation, and the main inputs to the calculation are the incomes of the two parents and the time of parenting, that each child has. So if it's a 50-50 situation where you guys live down the street and you're really each spending 50% of the time with the child, and you each make exactly the same amount of money, then there really, in theory, should be no child support payment going back and forth whatsoever. Now, in reality, usually one parent has more time than the other parent with the child. That we call that the custodial parent. And in reality, there's usually one parent that makes more money than the other parent. So the child support payment is based on a calculation that each state has that uses those things. And I remember I was like shocked, like, what do you mean $2,000, $3,000, $4,000? How could it be that much? I was working on Wall Street. I had a big high paying job. My daughter's mother at the time was unemployed. And so even though my daughter didn't have any big expenses, it was still a large number that, I owed to her in the child support. So when you try to figure it out, now I really got to emphasize every state and situation is different here. So you need a lawyer in the state to do this calculation for you. But what I sort of pieced together through a little bit of trial and error over a number of years, my state was Maryland, that's where my daughter's mother was, is that the rule of thumb was my monthly payment to her was about 1% of my annual pre-tax income. So 1% for a 1 month payment, 12 months in a year. 1 times 12, 12% a year. 12% of my annual pre-tax income was going to her child support payments. Now, of course, I pay tax. So after you figure out the tax, it was about 20% of my take-home pay was going to child support payments. Now, the support to her is a tax-free income. And to me, I can't, it's not a tax deduction or anything like that. So, it's a significant number, but really 12% of my pre-tax income, it's not going to cut my life in half or anything like that, right? Now, when we did some similar trial and error for Jessica and her ex, they were more of a comparable situation where they were both earning around, we think about $50,000 each at the time. This was a good 10 or 15 years ago. And they were both living nearby. And the child had, their son had daycare expenses to worry about. And Jessica was the custodial parent, so she had most of the time. So in that situation, he was paying about $1,275 a month, $15,000 a year, which was basically 30% of his pre-tax income. So in his example, it was about 30% of his pre-tax income. In my example, it was about 12%. So I'll sort of say, as a rough rule of thumb, if somebody's listening, they could think maybe somewhere between 10 and 30% of your pre-tax income could go to child support. And you really do need to get an attorney to plug in the numbers. So I mentioned daycare there. If a child has extra expenses such as daycare, a nanny, maybe some kind of special medical need, anything that is a large extra expense, that's going to be calculated, factor into the calculation. And when you fill out all these forms with your lawyer, you're going to have to tell them not only how much you make, but also how much do you spend in your life. And you have to talk about your car payments and your mortgage and your rent and all, and food.
And show your income in your bank account.
Exactly. For like 3 years, it's really a mess. I think we talked about that some last time. So again, the thing that just confuses people is, even though you have these expenses and you're writing on the form what the baby costs and so forth, it's really more about your relative incomes. And that's what throws people off and gets them upset. So the other thing now is each state has some other things to think about, which you'll need to find out. Some states, child support payments go till age 18, others till age 21. Some states say that both parents have to contribute to a college fund and others do not. Some states have a cap. Like New York State used to have a $5,000 cap on child support payments. I don't know if they still do or not. So there's all kinds of variables that you really need to get, with the lawyer to help figure it out. Now, the problem is, the challenge is, and this is sort of part 2 of my talk here, is that in real life, you don't know for sure what the other parent is making. And it sounds like you don't really think about this till you go through it. But, so you can have legitimate reasons why people might have incomes that vary or change over time. Maybe you're a salesman, maybe you run a small business and you have good years and bad years. If you work on commission, you could have good months and bad months, and so forth. So those could be legitimate reasons why your income could vary greatly year to year. And therefore, it's sort of hard to figure out, well, what do I put on the form if I don't know what I'm going to make this year? And the way the court handles that is they do a 3-year look back typically to say, well, what did you make over the last 3 years? Now, you can also have sort of what I call illegitimate reasons to have a variable income. And that could be, you get paid tips and you're not going to disclose them. You hide, have some kind of small business and you can sort of, hide the money, if you will, in hopes that the court doesn't see how much you're really earning. And so sometimes people, get into games like that. And that's why you need, a lawyer that knows how to dig and ask the right questions and ask for the right documents. So, for example, a good lawyer will ask for not only your financial statements, but show me your loan applications for the last few years. Because most people don't try to lie about how poor they are when they're trying to borrow money. Right. So if you're trying to get a mortgage or a car loan, you're writing the truth. You're writing how much you really make. And so good lawyers will ask for that kind of information. So, there, when you have a legitimate reason or an illegitimate reason that the numbers are moving around, that can be challenging. And so you don't really know, what's going on in real life. So at some point, some people get stuck on this. They have everything compromised with their spouse, with their ex. They know what the schedule is going to be with the baby. They're basically getting along, but they just can't sort of figure out the child support number without getting the lawyers involved. And I think that's okay, because if you go to a trial or a judge and say, look, we have 90% of everything figured out, judge, we just need you to help us solve this money situation, that at least is probably a lot less than lawyer fees. You get the parenting plan that you want. We talked about parenting plans last time. You get a parenting plan that works for you, and you just need the judge to sort of figure out who's lying about the financial stuff. And what I would just say is, I was haggling over this for a while with my daughter's mother, and the lawyer at some point said, look, you're arguing over a few $100s here a month. You're going to pay me $10,000 in legal bills to fight this for you, like you might as well just split it down the middle, meet her in the middle. And so that's what we did. So I would just urge everybody, compromise is the name of the game. Anything that can reduce your legal bills and your time in front of a judge, you want to compromise. And the last thing to mention is that mutual unhappiness is a sign of a good negotiation.
Everyone's ready to
right.
throw in the
Everybody
towel.
that pays the child support thinks it's too much, and everybody that receives it thinks it's too little. So if you both feel that way, it's probably the right number or pretty close to the right number. Extracurricular activities and uninsured medical expenses. So every parenting plan that a judge approves is going to have a paragraph on who pays things like, co-pays at the doctor's visit, or if there's some, kid needs braces or something. Extracurricular activities, you sign them up for soccer class or go skiing or whatever. And so typically that splits somewhere along the lines of your income split. So if you're 50-50, you both make about the same, then things like that should be split roughly 50-50. And so your document will have something in there that describes that. I would recommend that everybody do what's called like a de minimis clause. You don't want to be, asking your co-parent to, split the doctor's copay with me, for $40 divided by 2 or whatever. It just gets to, cause headaches. And it's like every time you speak to this parent who you probably aren't getting along with well, it leads to arguments. Oh, why didn't you pay me? You forgot to pay me. I did pay you. No, there was another one. Well, where's the receipt? And like, you just want to not do that for small amounts of money. Private school and college savings.
Ooh.
Yeah, that can be tricky. So it took me a long time to understand this. If both parents think and want the child to go to private school, then the judge will probably say, well, you ought to split the private school prices the way that your income, divides, similar to the extracurricular activities. If one parent doesn't want to go to private school and the other does, that's a tougher situation. So now you're going back to one. Remember, we talked about legal custody.
Yep.
If you have 50-50 decision-making rights, then you shouldn't really be forced to by one parent to go to expensive private school if the other parent doesn't want to. So when there's not agreement, I think that you're not going to be forced to pay for something like private school. If there is agreement, then you're going to need to pay for some of it. 529 college savings plan is what we would recommend for college savings. Definitely do not let the parent that's paying the support, do not let them say, well, instead of paying you child support, I'm going to put it in a 529 plan for our child. That's a bad idea.
Okay.
And the reason is that that parent still owns that money. Even if your child's name is on it as the beneficiary, he doesn't, you don't control it. The child doesn't control it. The other parent controls it. So what we recommend is that you make your child support payments and each parent start their own 529 college savings plan on their own and contribute, what they can. Obviously have a discussion with the other parent about how you're going to pay for college someday. How do you get paid? There's
Good
basically
question.
3 ways to get paid. So meaning every month, how do you actually receive the money? I guess you could hand over cash or Venmo or something like that. I don't think it's a good idea because it's tough to have a permanent record. And it starts to get very confusing if somebody's, 5 days late, 2 weeks late. Wait a minute, is this check for last month or next month or
Yeah.
this month? And what about that, soccer game you didn't pay for? So it gets to be very, very tricky. So a better way to do it is every state has some kind of a state-run system or website where one parent pays into the website and the other parent gets paid out from the website. So it's a
Oh,
third party that's managing it. And
okay.
it will keep track of, if somebody's behind in payments. I remember Jessica had this situation. And after a number of months where her ex was overdue, she just sort of clicked a button and the state went after him and actually garnished some money out of his next tax refund. So, you really want to have some kind of third party in the middle there that will help you. And the best way, the third and best way, I think, and I think a lot of states actually are using this now, is to use one of these parenting apps such as Our Family Wizard. These things are apps on your phone, and they have all kinds of functionality and features that help high conflict parents communicate better, shared calendars, all that kind of stuff. And we can talk about those another time. But one of the things they do is keep track of payments, and they make it very easy to get a receipt for the soccer game or whatever. And so we would definitely recommend you use something like that. Back to attorney's fees, if you want to talk about that again for a second. So I
Yeah.
mentioned
And
I
let's just remind everyone how we
sure.
can contact you because we're on a roll and pick up a copy of the book.
Yes, we are on a roll. So it's www.babyoutofwedlock.com. And the website has links to the book, links, you can get a hold of us there. I read all the emails that come in, and I'm happy to help or connect you with one of our partners that can help. And the book is on Amazon and Audible and everywhere else you can buy books. That is the best way to reach us.
Awesome. All right, let's continue.
Sure. So attorney's fees. So, like I said before, the babies don't really cost that much. Child support's can be based on your income, so it shouldn't kill you. But the attorney's fees, you can just absolutely, go bankrupt with this. And so you really want to find a way to compromise, to learn what is worth fighting over, what is not worth fighting over, learn what is reasonable. And what I mean by that is, my daughter's mother didn't want me to have an overnight visit till my daughter was 3 or 4 years old. And that would just kind of, that's what most people would say was unreasonable. And so if she wasn't unreasonable in that way, we wouldn't have had such a long court battle. She didn't want me to have 50-50, legal custody. And if we had gone to court, everybody said I would get 50-50 legal custody. So that was unreasonable, I would say, by her. And I'm not trying to throw all the blame on her. Those are just two, examples that come to mind.
Yeah.
So you really got to figure out how to cut through all the nonsense, write a parenting plan with your co-parent that agrees on the big things, how, when, holidays, and then just come to the lawyers and say, look, here's what we want to do. We'll pay whatever the child support calculator says we should pay.
Yep.
And we're happy to pay you to draft this up and give it to the judge for us. And that'll be a few $100s, maybe $1,000, nothing like what I paid. Recalculation is a big thing. So people say, well, recalculating of child support numbers,
Got it. Oh, yeah. How often are you
right?
supposed to update that? Once every
Yes,
how many
yes.
years? That's a good question.
So, some people do it every year, and that's a good way to drive your ex crazy, right? I
Yep.
mean, you get served with a court notice that says we want to take you back to court every year to talk about child support. That drives people nuts. However, if things really change, if your circumstances changed, you lose a big job and now you're only making half
Yeah.
as much, or maybe you have a parent that now lives with you and needs special care, so your expenses have doubled.
Mm-hmm.
If something really changes, a material change, then that party can go back to the courts and ask for a recalculation. Sometimes the change could be, I know that dad now makes double because he just got promoted and he's the big shot at the office now. So I mean, if you want to go after him for that kind of thing, that would be a material change.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to go through the whole process again of send in all your documents, blah blah, and it's a big headache and it's lawyers and expensive. So I would suggest, if you think there's a material change, before you go to your lawyer, go to the other person and say, here's what I think. I think I should be getting more, or I think I should be paying less because this is what's changed. Can we compromise here? Can we agree to some lesser number or higher number, whatever the case may be? And then you avoid the lawyers like battling it. You don't want a lawyer battle. You want to go to the lawyers and say, both of us have agreed to change our child support number to this new number. Can you help us, get the courts to recognize that? So you can do that. You cannot impoverish yourself. You can't, quit your
Yeah.
job and go work at McDonald's and then just say, I don't need to, pay as much. The courts will look at what you used to earn and figure that's what you're capable of earning. Now, of course, people do get laid off, they get fired, and that's scary because, you may not be able to get a new job at the same price the same amount you were earning before. And so I think that the only thing I could say there is it's kind of like having a mortgage. Like, you got to
Mm-hmm.
have some savings in the bank. You got to put some money away for a rainy day. So if you get laid off, you'll have that money in the bank to pay your child support long enough until you get another job. Because even if you go to the court and say, I got laid off, they're going to say, well, let's see if you can find a new job. Come back in 12 months. And so you need to have, some money in the bank to hold you over. Spouses. If somebody gets a new spouse, that person's income does not count in the child support calculation.
Yep.
That's important and a big question we get all the time. And the last thing I wrote down here is just, it's okay to be reasonable about things. So, for one summer, my daughter, my Jessica's son went to live with his father for the summer. She stopped receiving child support for the summer. In fact, he
Mm-hmm.
actually paid him child support that summer voluntarily. And so, that kind of thing really goes a long way in keeping your relationship with your co-parent good, and healthy. Just be fair about it. That's all I have for my notes today. I know we're almost out of time. We do have other things that we can talk about. I don't know if you want to save them for next week or any questions.
Well, I think it's important to get just a little more of your background. The
Sure,
book, could be very
sure.
helpful as well with all
Yes,
this.
yes,
And
yes.
right. And I think that to sum up today, it's also important to remember, like, don't let that judge decide. You could do this together. It's more practical, less expensive. And I'm still shocked
Mhm.
at the number you threw out before, that
Yeah,
it was $160,000 for you and
yeah.
your child's mom.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
well, you know what?
That's
That reminds
just
me. So of my
okay.
165,000,
Oh,
21,000 was
yeah.
me paying her lawyer.
Got it.
And I forgot to talk about that. So legal bills, in if you have a situation where one person is earning a lot more money than the other person, the court will make you contribute to that person's legal bills, even if what they're asking for is ridiculous, even if there should be no battle at all, as I felt was the case for me. They're going to just say, we don't want the rich having access to the lawyers and the poor not having
Mhm.
and so they make it so you really have to understand that, and that can be a big problem because then you get the parent that's receiving the money. Sometimes they realize that their legal bills are even going to
Wow.
be paid for, and then they just say, well, I can get away with anything I want here. So that goes back to why you need a parenting coordinator, which we talked about at the last interview.
Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Well, this is
yeah.
a lot of headache that could be relieved with your own
Hmm.
experience, with your knowledge. And if someone wants to work with you, could you just share how they can reach out to you?
Sure. So www.babyoutofwedlock.com. You can send us an email there, and we can set up a phone call. I can answer a question on email if it's simple, and I can connect you with some of our partners that really do a lot of hand holding and helping of people in this situation. And look for the book on Amazon or anywhere else. It's won actually 6 awards, which we're very proud to say.
Oh my goodness! Congratulations! Yeah. What awards?
6 different literary awards. They're on the website. I don't remember.
Impressive. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we appreciate your time here. Are we back again soon?
I think we're back next week for the 5th and final. I think it's maybe 1:00 next Thursday, something like that.
All right. Good.
Yep. I don't know if we're going to do any Q&A next week, but I have some sort of miscellaneous topics we can go through.
Absolutely. We'll open the lines. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much for being here. All right. You have a fantastic day, and we'll talk hopefully next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.